What's up, curious youngsters? What happens if we're always wasting time doing useless things or watching millions of videos, ending up with those weird YouTube recommendations? Why not spend a few minutes on Senor Curiosity instead? Learning 30 totally epic facts that you'll forget in 10 minutes, but these aren't just any facts. They're going to leave you completely amazed. For this and much more, here are 30 things you didn't know 5 minutes ago. One of the most intriguing questions we ask ourselves is whether there is life on other planets, and in the city of St. Paul. In Canada, they decided to be prepared for a possible extraterrestrial arrival. So a couple of years ago in 1967, they built the first and only UFO landing pad in the world. Each country celebrates its holidays in different ways, even if they're sometimes a bit exotic. For example, when Australia Day comes around, there's a cockroach race in the city of Brisbane. Huh? Yes, just like it sounds. This unusual competition has been organized for 30 years at the Storybridge Hotel. And here's the thing, the main rule is that any cockroach that flies is completely disqualified. Now that's really strange, my friend. If we think of a beach, we probably imagine the sea and golden sands. But this isn't always the case, because in a place in Australia called Hems Beach, there's sand that's completely white. So white that it even holds a Guinness World Record. This unusual sand has this characteristic because of a substance from the corals, which also causes some curious sounds to be produced when you walk on it. Mickey Mouse and his girlfriend Minnie are the most recognizable cartoons in the world, largely thanks to the distinctive voices of their voice actors. And although it may seem unbelievable, the American actors who played these characters were actually married in real life. This couple, made up of Wayne Allwine and Russi Taylor, worked together for many years before finally getting married in 1991. We know that China is a country known for its impressive buildings, such as the Shimao Wonderland Hotel, which is a spectacular and complex 5-star hotel built on an abandoned quarry to build its 18 floors. The quarry was completely emptied and then refilled so that 2 of its floors ended up underwater, and with incredible underwater views. In this fascinating world, we can find all kinds of jobs, and a woman in Japan named Yukako Fujishima has one of the most impressive jobs in the world. She makes and sells finger and hand prosthetics for former members of the Yakuza. Because yes, many people may be missing a limb, but Japanese mafia groups have a custom of cutting off many fingers for different reasons, which is what gives Yukako this unusual job. Huh? Yes, cue the shocked owl, let's go. Have you ever seen a product's barcode being scanned? But did you know that the reader of this device actually scans the white spaces? Since the black bars absorb the laser light, and it reflects off the lighter areas. So then, the device takes the reflected light and turns it into electrical signals. All around the world, all kinds of musical instruments have been invented, and one of the oldest and rarest is called the glass harmonica. This peculiar instrument is played with moistened fingers in a way similar to when we wet our fingers and run them along the rim of a glass, which ends up producing different sounds. Our arrival on the moon changed the history of humanity, and it was made possible thanks to a very complex mission where everything had to be perfectly calculated. And, for example, in order to return with the right weight, the astronauts left a total of 9 pairs of boots on the moon, which remain on our satellite to this day. Have you ever heard about equestrian competitions where horses have to perform different jumps? Well, even though it sounds unbelievable, this discipline has a miniature version for rabbits that was invented in Sweden. In these circuits, the animals compete to complete the course in the shortest possible time while putting on an adorable show. Why so strange? Sweden? Why? Nowadays, we have all kinds of spices and knives that are made industrially in large factories. But imagine going through life 1,000 years ago and coming across this. What we're seeing is an incredible design engraved on the head of a Viking axe found by some researchers in Denmark. It's incredible how much detail they achieved with technology that doesn't even come close to what we have today. When we're stressed, there's nothing better than visiting a spa to relax and recharge our batteries at the same time. But if we're looking for a place with an exotic touch, we should visit the Shinsen Spa Resort in Japan. In this resort, we can bathe in more than 25 themed pools that feature hot spring water mixed with drinks like green tea or coffee. Around the world, we can find certain jobs that, at least from the outside, seem pretty fun. And one of the coolest is the ice cream taster for the company, Ben & Sherry's. In this job, there's an interesting fact. A gold spoon is used so as not to alter the taste of the product, since gold has no flavor. Generally, banknotes have monuments or historical figures from the nation they belong to, but in the case of euros, none of their bridges, windows, or arches are real. This was done to avoid controversy among the different countries of the European Union. That's why, instead of choosing existing sites, they used designs that symbolize openness, unity, and cooperation. Smart move, European Union. If we talk about wild animals, we're talking about Africa. But even though this continent has enormous biodiversity and is home to big cats like the lion, there's one species that isn't naturally present and can only be found in wildlife centers. We're talking about tigers, big cats that only live on the Asian continent. One of the first toys in human history was the yo-yo, and they're so old that they were already used in ancient Greece during the 5th century. But did you know that when they were created, they were used as a weapon? Huh? Yes, because it's been found that ancient yo-yos were made of stone and used for hunting. If we travel to Taiwan, we can enjoy a truly varied cuisine with hundreds of themed restaurants. One of the most curious is called Modern Toilet, and its gimmick is that all the dishes are served in toilet-shaped containers. Also, their establishments feature plenty of humor and a large toilet at the entrance. When we think of a sculpture, we usually picture something solid, though there are exceptions. A Japanese environmental artist named Fukuoka Fujijo Nakaya creates fog sculptures. This woman is the first to use this art as a sculptural medium, inventing a unique form of ephemeral art, where she uses high-pressure motors to generate artificial fog in her various creations. Great work, Fukuoka. We know that every flight has a crew ready to take control of the plane in case of any mishap. And to anticipate a common problem, such as food poisoning, the main airlines give different meals to each member of the crew, so the plane doesn't end up without its crew. The path to becoming an astronaut is not easy at all, and NASA requires all kinds of qualifications from the 6,000 applicants who apply each year. And, for example, one of the many interesting requirements is that the applicant must have a height between 1.57 and 1.90 meters. Nowadays, we can watch all kinds of movies at home, and that made many major cinema chains try to imitate a home-like environment so they wouldn't lose customers. For example, the Blitz Megaplex Cinema in Indonesia. It has a room that looks like a comfortable living room, and instead of traditional seats, they put in some comfortable sofa beds. Our calendar has two very famous dates because of the belief that they bring bad luck. And did you know there's a simple way to calculate when they're going to be? If a month starts on a Sunday, it will have a Friday the 13th, while if the month starts on a Thursday, it will have a Tuesday the 13th. Let's see if you knew that. Koalas are one of the most voracious animals that exist, since they spend almost the whole day eating. These marsupials can eat up to 1 kilo of eucalyptus leaves in a single day. And did you know that only they can digest them without problems, since these leaves are toxic? But their bodies adapted to tolerate them, and that way, they don't compete for food with other animals. Have you ever eaten something after brushing your teeth and noticed it tasted strange? Well, this happens because toothpaste temporarily blocks the sweet receptors on our tongue. That's why some foods or drinks like orange juice taste pretty bad if we consume them. Right at that moment, you probably heard about the famous legend of the Loch Ness Monster in Scotland. Well, for many years, people tried to prove its existence in different searches that were unsuccessful. And in the last expedition, carried out in 2009, although the monster didn't appear, what they did find were about 100,000 golf balls underwater, which had fallen in from the nearby golf courses. Many times eating a fruit for dessert isn't very tempting, but the case of the black sapote might be an exception. since many people who eat this exotic fruit claim that it tastes similar to chocolate. Also, its dark color reminds us even more of this delicious food. We know that falls from great heights can be fatal for a person, but fortunately, there are also exceptions. And this is the case of John Murray, who survived after falling from 4,000 meters high due to a failure in his parachute. This woman fell onto a huge anthill, and the venom from the stings caused an adrenaline rush that allowed her heart to keep going until rescue arrived. Now that's what I call luck, John. Few secrets are as well guarded as the formula for Coca-Cola. And although it seems incredible, this document has been kept for more than 80 years inside a safe deposit box in a bank in Atlanta, United States. And although in 2021, that safe will be moved to the World of Coca-Cola Museum, where it will be displayed. Is the treasured formula believed to be somewhere else, away from the public? If we think of a crocodile, we surely imagine its huge jaw, which has one of the most powerful bites that exist. Although the mouths of these reptiles have a peculiarity, and that is that they can't stick out their tongues. They can only move it a few centimeters since it is completely attached to their palate by a kind of membrane. Nowadays, it's not that uncommon to see a hammer truck on the street, but a few years ago, these vehicles were only for military use. And did you know that the actor Arnold Schwarzenegger was the first civilian who got to drive it? Apparently, our Arnold was a huge fan and followed the brand closely.